This week, the Cake token is one of the top performers within all of crypto. Now, the question is, how much longer can this rally last? What's driving this? Who's buying here? Who's selling here? Let's have a look at the on-chain data, the data most people are not considering. We are now at $3.77 and we appreciated by 57% this month. During the same time frame, Bitcoin only went up by 13%. So it's not the general market that's pushing up the Cake price. However, there is an external driver that's helping Cake a lot, and that's BNB. BNB is the gas token on the Binance Smart Chain. So this is the infrastructure Pancakeswap is running on, and BNB appreciated by 42% in the last month. So really, this is not just a Cake rally. This is, to a large degree, an appreciation of the entire Binance Smart Chain ecosystem. Here's Cake over the very long term on a linear scale. Here we've got the same on a logarithmic scale. This is the recent rally. But I actually don't like charts like this. I think it's much better to look at relative valuation charts like this here. This is Cake now relative to Bitcoin. And yes, we have seen quite a bit of outperformance again in the last week. But we are unfortunately long term in a declining trend. Many altcoins look like this because Bitcoin gets purchased by Wall Street over and over again through the treasury companies and through the ETFs, and many altcoins cannot keep up with that. So this chart would imply that there isn't that much more upside from here, maybe another 20% or so outperformance versus Bitcoin. Here's a chart relative to the others market cap. So that's now all the altcoins that are not in the top 10, Cake being one of them. And here we can see that the last 1.5 to 2 years, relatively speaking, hadn't been too bad for Cake. Really, this was an underperformance versus Bitcoin because of a Bitcoin specific demand driver. Within the altcoin market, Cake didn't do too poorly. But again, since Cake and BNB is that highly correlated, since they are in the same ecosystem, a relative valuation to BNB probably makes most sense. And this, again, isn't the prettiest of charts. One would expect that if we go higher up the risk curve, so we buy a specific decentralized finance protocol over the entire blockchain gas token, that actually with the additional risk, we should also get more performance. But unfortunately, that was historically not the case for the Cake token. We are currently bouncing off a support, a very similar situation to what we had in summer of 2023. But again, the overall trend isn't that pretty. Over the span of a year, Cake tends to underperform BNB by roughly 41%. Now, where does this underperformance come from? I think initially this was mainly tokenomics, as in more and more tokens hit the market. There was a very attractive staking program for Cake where people that staked the token could get around 60 to 70% APY measured in Cake tokens after launch of the program. But now the staking program isn't that attractive anymore. I think the current underperformance comes from another driver, and that's just plain simply the usage of the platform. Here's the total value locked of Pancakeswap over time. We might argue that this is actually recently increasing, but once we measure this in another cryptocurrency, for example Ethereum, now the TVL is not going up at all. It tends to rather still shrink. The total value locked of the entire Binance Smart Chain went from 2.7 billion to 8.6 billion. So roughly a 3x since October of 2023 when money started to flow into the space again. The total value locked of Pancakeswap barely 2x'd. So really, Pancakeswap did worse than the rest of the ecosystem. Check out the number of active addresses on the Binance Smart Chain. This actually looks quite healthy, as in there is recent growth. But have a look at the fees that are generated through Pancakeswap. That's relatively stagnant. Here's the revenue, a very similar picture. So really, the demand versus supply dynamics still aren't that great for Cake. We still see an increasing supply, and at the same time, people net even unstake their Cake. So the unstaked Cake also hits the market, creating even more selling pressure. So the total supply of Cake is 360 million tokens. It's going up over time. And here is the staked Cake that peaked in August of 2023 and since then is declining. Let's have a look at a few more on-chain metrics. So we've got 1.8 million holders of Cake. So that's directly on the Binance Smart Chain. But a lot of those holders aren't really relevant, as in many wallets might just hold a few cents worth of the token. So let's look at the holders that have at least 300 tokens. So at the current price, that's a bit over $1,000. Then we're getting this chart here. So there's only 30,000 wallets that have more than $1,000 worth of the token. The vast majority of those holders have very insignificant amounts. And the problem with that chart is also that we have stopped seeing any new accumulation. The number of holders of Cake is stagnating, and that's for more than a year now. That's since August of 2024. Now, we've looked at a lot of the long-term trends, but what's happening recently short-term? Why do we see such a spike, and can we potentially rally further? Let's have a look at what's currently driving the price of Cake. Most trading does not happen on the spot market. Here we had 140 million worth of trading volume on Binance. Much more trading volume is on the perpetual futures market. Here we had 316 million in the last 24 hours. Most people that use leverage, that use the perpetual futures to bet on Cake, tend to bet on rising prices. So the funding rate tends to be positive most of the time. There's more longs than shorts. The longs have to pay the shorts in order to get more price exposure. The problem is that the open interest currently is historically high. And there is positive correlation between open interest and the price, as in when there is more open interest, the price tends to be high. When there's less open interest, the price tends to be low. So if open interest tends to decline from here, this could push the price further down. The trading volume is also very high right now. Again, there is positive correlation between trading volume on the perpetual futures and the spot price. We do not want to buy whenever trading volume is high. We rather want to buy when trading volume is low. And currently we are extremely high in trading volume. And yes, of course, this rally does liquidate a few people, the majority being the shorts. But I don't think this is just a short squeeze, because the market cap of Cake is too high to justify too much price manipulation. Again, I think the majority of this price rally is driven by the BNB price going up, not by Cake specifically performing that well. And BNB is performing because of Astadex. BNB is performing because of its adoption of perpetual futures, not necessarily because of spot trading, what Pancakeswap stands for. I've been outperforming dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin for quite a while now. This is a 4-year chart. Dollar cost averaging would have given me this gray line. I instead got the black line. And I did this with various approaches. I did this with relative valuation bets. I did this with back-tested strategies. If you want to learn more about this, then feel free to check out the premium membership. So the link is down below. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com. A link to premium should pop up directly here on the screen. Just click on that. It will lead you to the website. If it's the very first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish this regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube, or see you in premium. Cheers.